Daf Ayin Vav Amud Beis. We'll begin Daf Ayin Vav Amud Aleph right at the bottom at the end of the last line. Rav said that Basar Shchut, if you have Basar that was Shecht, Shaman, that is fatty, Shitzalim and Basar Nevela Kachush, he roasted it together in an oven, together with the Basar Nevela, the meat of a Nevela, even though it's Kachush, even though it's lean. So he says it's Aser. He says it's Aser. My time mifatve ma'adari, because they are fattened up by each other. Meaning the Basar Shchuta it's a Shchuta that's Shomin, it's fatty. So therefore the Nevela that's roasted together with it will absorb some of the aroma of the Reach, which is considered to be part of the meat itself, and it'll be absorbed in the Nevela. Now the Nevela, which is Chusha, will now become to a degree fatty, and then the Basar Shchuta will reabsorb from the Basar Nevela, and it'll absorb some of the aroma of the Basar Nevela, so it'll have a taruvas of a mixture of the Basar Nevela mixed in with the Shchuta, so they aser on each other. Meaning, certainly in a case where the Nevela is fatty, certainly it would aser onto the Basar Shchuta. If the Basar Shchuta is lean, and certainly if the Nevela is fatty, or even if the Basar Shchuta is fatty itself. But even in a case where it's only the Shchuta which is Shomin, and the Nevela is Kochosh, so you might think, therefore, it will not be able to permeate into the Basar Shchuta. Nevertheless, it does, because it absorbs from the Shchuta, and the Shchuta reabsorbs from the Nevela. However, Taisa says that if they're both a Chusha, if they're both lean, so Taisa says, and the Rashba and the Miri as well, that in such a case, Rav will be minded that they don't asar on each other. But if you have one of them that is fatty, then they will. So therefore, Rav says that the Rosh, but Levi argues, and he says, "I feel basar shchuta kolchashet sola in basar nevela shalmein." He says even if the nevela is fatty and the shchuta is kolchash, it's muter. It's still muter. My time reicha ba'almahu, because it's only reich, it's only the aroma, and the reicha lab milsi, and we don't consider that to be significant. So therefore, he says it is therefore muter. Ovid Levi Uvda be Reish Galusa. Levi, in a case where by the Reish Galusa, where they had the two pieces of meat that roasted together, and he did the paskin in such a case, Bigdi v'Dover Acher, where there was a Gdi, a kid, and a Dover Acher, a Chazer, and he said he was matred. He was matred according to the Shita. Now, Rashi is mashma, and Rif says beferish that even though Levi is matred, and he says reichalav milsa, but that's only b'diavad. And l'chadchila, though, he would be moida that it's aser. And it's a mashmos from Rashi, the way he explains this case, that Avid Levi Uvda, that b'diavad, lachar ma'isa b'diavad, he was matred. The way Rabbi Akiva Eiger explains it is that even though he says reichalav milsa, but that doesn't mean that it's completely nothing, that it's nothing at all. It means it's insignificant. So there's an insignificant amount of time that gets absorbed into the basar that's shchuta, the basar that's muter. However, it's only that it's bottle after the fact. But l'charchila, you're not allowed to be mevatel it. So ein mevatel nesr l'charchila. B'diavad, if they were together, then it becomes bottle. That's the way Rabbi Akiva Eiger learns it. The Salsemes does not learn that way in Rashi, and as we'll see, the Pshat in the Salsemes shortly, he learns it in the Rif. Rather, he seems to agree with that, because the Rif says clearly that on account of Reach is also l'chadchila. But we'll see in Rashi he learns somewhat of a different Pshat in Rashi. So we'll see. Frakta Gemara Meisvei, ask a kasha on Levi. In the Bryce it says, "Ein tzelem shnei pesachim ke'echad mimnei taruvas." You can't roast two pesachim, two korbanos pesachim together because of taruvas, because of the mixture. So, what is taruvas? My love, taruves ta'amim. Doesn't it mean the taruves of ta'amim that the tam, from the reach, they get mixed together, and that therefore it's considered like you have a Pesach, Korban Pesach, or one Korban Pesach that has part of another Korban Pesach in it. So a Korban Pesach has to be eaten only by the Bnei Chabura, Min HaMenuyah. You can't have a mixture of two Korban Pesachs together, because each one Chabura that's eating it is also eating from the Korban Pesach of a different Chabura. So my law, why is it also? Why do we say we don't roast it together? Because taruv is tamim, because you have the mixture of the reach, which means therefore the mamish of the two korban pesach, they're mixed together. The kasha levi, and it's a kasha levi that says that reich halav milsa. Mora says no. Lai mipnei taruv it's gufin. It says it's not because of the reach. It's exera because of Taruv Gufin, that they might take the wrong Korban Pesach. Each Chabura might take the different Korban Pesach, the Korban Pesach that belongs to a different Chabura. It's nothing to do with the Reach. Levi will learn. It's exera. We're concerned that a chashash that they might pick up, they might take the Korban Pesach that belongs to a different Chabura. That they'll take the Korban Pesach that doesn't belong to them. Taisus asks on the Gemara, he says that, what is the kasha to begin with? I mean, Lefi Shitas Rashi, Lefi Shitas the Riv, that Levi is Maita, that Lecharchil, it's also. So what's the kasha? Yes, Ain't Silent Shnei Pesachim Kechad, we play Taruvis, means Lecharchila you don't do it because of Taruvis. But B'diavad would be Mutter. So what's the kasha? According to the way they learn, that Levi asks that Lecharchila, then what's the kasha? Elamai, it's Mashma, that Levi says it's mutter, even l'chadchila. So as I fact Taisus. So the Sasemis now answers Rashi as follows. The Sasemis says the reason that Rashi says that l'chadchila it's also, according to Levi, is not because tam is also l'chadchila. It's gufa from what the Gemara is saying here. He says that you don't roast it together because of taruvis of the gufin, because you might take the wrong meat, you might take the wrong goof. That's why it's also harchila. The way he learns in Rashi, it's not the way Rabbi Akiva Eiger explained it. And now again, he can't learn that way in the Rif, but the way he learns in Rashi is he goofed. Why does the Levi say l'chadchila? It's also not because taruvis of the reach, because reach is milsa l'chadchila. No. Reich is lav milsa at all. Even l'chadchila, we're not concerned about it. But we say l'chadchila, you can't do it, you shouldn't do it because of taruvas gufin, because you might take the wrong meat. Hachinam mistaber, and it's mistaber to explain it that it's mipnei taruvas gufin. Tani seifa, because the seifa says afila gedi v'tlet. Even if one is a gedi and the other was a tlet, one is a goat and one is a lamb. If you say the concern is gufin, he might take the wrong meat. That's why it says even a gedi, meaning even a gedi and tla. There's two different meaning. Even there, we're concerned about the possibility that he might exchange them. And certainly, in a case of whether it be the same min, a gedi, then we'd be concerned. But even afilu, we understand the lashon of afilu, even if it's a gediva tla and where the concern is not so great, nevertheless we are concerned. But if you say that the concern is taruvis tamim, that's the issue. Mali gediva tla, mali gediva gedi. There's a taruvis of the tamim. If that is an issue, what's the difference if it's the same type? If it's both goats or both lambs, what's the difference? There's a taruvis of the tam. Elamai, it must be that the concern is gufin, and therefore we say even in this case, even in the case where the two different gufin, then we are still concerned, even though it's less likely that he'll exchange it, we're still concerned. So you see that gufin is a consideration. In fact, Rabbi Akiva Eiger, fine, it's true. You see that gufin is a consideration. But how do you know that tamim is not also a consideration? So perhaps we'll say that they're both a consideration. So Rabbi Akiva Eiger explains that no, because if that the reach was a consideration and the ubi tamim was a concern, then that should be the overriding one, because that would be a concern even b'diavad. If Reicha is milsa, then it's even b'diavad is also. So therefore, that's what should be emphasized, that it's where the reach is also, and that is the overriding concern, because it's also even b'diavad. Whereas over here, it's only chashash he might exchange it, and if he doesn't exchange it, then it would be mutter. Therefore, the issue that should be stressed is the tamim and not the gufin. The Gemara continues, Elamai, what are you going to say therefore? Al korcha tarubis gufin udhasa. You're going to say that the issue is tarubis gufin. Al tarubis tamim shari, but tarubis tam would be muter. Lema teavat yufta the Rav. So let us say that it should be akasha on Rav. So it seems to be over here that the issue is not tamim, it's gufin. So let's say it's a kasha on Rav. Frak Taises. Well, Taises, we learned previously, he said that if both are kachush, or both are lean, then reich is not a factor. Perhaps what we're talking about over here, in a case where they're both lean, they're both kachush, where reich is not a factor, therefore the only concern over here is the gufin. So maybe that's why the reich is not an issue over here. The Slach answers it's not commonplace to have a Korban Pesach where they're both kochush. People have to eat the meat, the Bnei Chabur have to eat the meat, so it's not likely to say that that's the case over here. They were roasted in two different pots, and therefore there's no tarubis of the reach. What do you mean in two pots? You can't roast a Korban Pesach on a pot. It has to be on a spit. You can't roast it in a pot. Right? We learned previously even on a grill you can't. It has to be on a spit. Ella, Gemara says, so it means it's not two pots, it's on a spit, but they were separated. They were separated, for instance, with a pile of coals. So there's a separation between the two, and therefore reach is not a factor. You can't roast the two because of taruvis. My taruvis tamim. The taruvis of tamim. That's how he will learn. Now, and it can. Now, even in a case where they're like two different pots, meaning there's a separation, they're like a taruvas tamim, so you don't have the taruvas tamim. Nevertheless, also mishum taruvas gufin. It's still also mishum taruvas gufin. And even if one is a goat and one is a lamb, where the possibility of exchanging them is more remote, we still say it's also. Amar Rav Mori says, let's say this machlokes is between Rav and Levi, it's a machlokes tanoim. Hareda pas chama, if someone takes hot bread from the oven, he removes it from the oven and he puts it on a barrel of yain of truma. Ramer Iser. So Ramer says it absorbs from the wine of the truma, and therefore the bread has truma mixed in with it, it's mingled in with it is truma, and therefore it's also tezorim, and a non-kohen can't eat it. Rav Yehuda matter. Rav Yehuda says it's mutter. Rav Yossi matter b'shel chitin. Rav Yossi says if the bread is made out of wheat, then it's mutter. V'oiser b'shel sa'irim. But if it's out of barley, it's aser. B'pnei sha'sa'irim shoyavas, because the barley draws more, it has more power to draw and absorb, so the wine is absorbed in it. So my love tonight. So is this not a machlokes tanoim? The Mars of a reich la milsa. That Rav Yehuda holds that reich is la milsa, and therefore it's mutter. Umar sava reich milsi. And Ramer holds that reich is milsa, and therefore it's also. Where it says Levi vari tanoim. Levi, you must say it's a machlokes tanoim, because when you see that Ramer is iser, he must hold the reich milsa. So therefore he must hold it's a machlokes tanoim. But L'Rav name Tanoi, but according to Rav, should we say it's a machlokes tanoim or perhaps not? Amalach Rav says no, it's not. The Kuli Alma Reicha Milsi. I'll tell you that everyone holds that Reicha is Milsi. So we understand why Ramer answers, but why is Rav Yehuda matir? Amar Rabba Barachana, Amar Reish Lakish, Becham, Bepascham, Bechavis Psucha. If the bread is hot and the barrel is open, it's not closed, then Divra Kol Asim. everyone will agree that it's also because Reicha Milsa, and it absorbs from the wine. If the pas is cold and the cask is sealed, the barrel is closed, then Divra Kol Muter, because in such a case it won't absorb. The machlokes is that the pas is hot, so it has a greater ability to absorb the wine. But the chaves is closed. So therefore, in terms of the barrel, there's less likelihood that the wine will be absorbed. Pasoinenes, or alternatively, pasoinenes, if the bread is cold, so from the vantage point of the bread, it draws less, it's shoyev less, and it'll absorb less. But if it's an open barrel, which therefore there are more aromas that it more likely to absorb. That's the case of machlokes. So if it's in a case where it's a clear-cut case where it's pas chama and chaves psucha, Rav will tell you that everyone holds that reicha milsa v'hanami. In our case over here, in the case of the roasting of the meat, it's kipas chama v'chaves psucha dami. They're roasted together in one oven on one area, so it's like a case of pas chama chaves psucha, where everyone will agree that it's also. That's how Rav will learn, and it's not a machlokes tanoim. Tani Rav Kana Breder Rav Chinen Asavi, he learned pas shafayim sliba tanur. If you have a bread that was baked with roasted meat in an oven, also la'achla b'kuscha. So he says you can't eat it with kutach that has milk. So because reicha milsa and the bread has absorbed from the meat, so it's considered fleshik, and therefore you can't eat it with kutach, what is milchik? There was a fish that was roasted together with meat. So based on this, the fish now has meat in it. Also, Ravim Parzikal Mechla B'Kuscha, he says also to eat it with kutach because it's milk Basar B'Chola. Marba Ravashi Amr, he says, Afilo b'milcha nami asur. He says, even to eat it alone, just salting, the meaning, the normal way that you eat it, is also, even if it's not with milk. Why is that? Mishum dekashel areichul davar acher, because it's difficult, it's harmful for a bad odor, and for tsaras, for leprosy. Meaning, eating fish, like we know, eating fish with meat, is harmful. It's a sakana. He says here also, since the fish has the meat in it, it's like eating fish and meat. And therefore, even without eating with milk, you still have the problem of the sakana, because it's as if you're eating fish and meat together. Five things are brought, even though they're tuma, even though there's tuma, but even though you're makravid, but you can't eat it. It can't be eaten in tuma. Ha'aymer, the minchas ha'aymer that's brought on the 16th day of Pesach, you bring it, the minchas ha'aymer. So as we'll see, what we're dealing over here, when it's brought to tuma, if we're talking about a korban tzibur. Now, it's mash from Rashi Vaiter that this Tanit holds that it's a korban tzibur shezmana kavua. So it's a korban tzibur, and also, in addition, if it's bought at a set time, then we say that tuma hutra b'tzibur, tuchui b'tzibur, hutra b'tzibur is brought in a state of tuma. But even though it's brought in a state of tuma, that's only for the hakrava. But for the achila, you're not allowed to eat it. So the korban ha'omer it has to be brought the 16th of Nisan. It's a korban tzibur. Ushtei halechem, the two loaves of lechem that are brought on shuas. These two lechems are brought on shuas, and they're brought together with the shlomim. Now these loaves, we don't put them on the mizbeach. We're not makriv on the mizbeach, but they do. There's a tnufa that's done, the waving that's done with the shlomim. They're brought with the shlomim. That aveda is done even though the tzibur is tamei, that's brought betuma, but it can't eat the lechem. The lechem cannot be eaten betuma. The lechem upon him, that it's brought on the shulchan, it's placed on the shulchan on Shabbos, and with the bezichi levina the following week, they're maktir the levina, and the bread is eaten. They can be put on the shulchan, even though it's tzibur tamei. They can be put on the shulchan, and you can be maktir the bezich the levina. But in such a case, the lechem, which normally is eaten by the kohanim, in this case cannot be eaten. V'zivchei shalmei tzibur, and the shalmei tzibur, the shlomim that are brought on shuas, which was mentioned before. Also, you can be makriv b'tumah, but you can't eat it b'tumah. Usirei rosh chadoshim, and the chatos that are brought on rosh chodesh. Also, you can be makriv b'tumah, but they can't be eaten. Now, Pesach shabo b'tumah, nechal b'tumah, but Pesach, Korban Pesach is an exception, because the Korban Pesach is brought to be eaten. It has to be eaten. So, to be makriv, a condition is that it's eaten. So here, part and parcel is the hakrova, is the achila. So the Korban Pesach, it's not only brought b'tumah, it's nechal b'tumah. Shaloi bo mitchilosoi elo lachila, because in the first place it's brought for the purpose of eating. So here it's different. Chamisha, chamisha lemutei mai. It says 5 things. What is it coming to exclude? Lemutei chagigas chamisha asar. It's to exclude the Korban Chagiga of the 15th of Nisan, as opposed to the Korban Chagiga of the 14th of Nisan. This is the Chagiga of the 15th of Nisan that everybody brings. People come, they have to bring a Korban Chagiga for the Chag. So we consider it to be a Korban Sibur in this regard. So it's limute, however, the Chagigas Chamisha Asar, then in this case it's not brought b'tumah. The Salkedaita Chamina, you might have said, came in the Korban Sibur, who we consider a Korban Sibur because everybody brings this Korban, Ukfiyale Moyed, and it has a set time, you bring it for the Moyed, Tidchetuma, it should be Doichetuma, Kamash Malan, that this type of a Korban Sibur, it's not Doichetuma. Not like the 5 cases of the Mishnah. Why? It came in the Islay Tashlum Kol Shiva, because yes, everyone brings it, but if he didn't bring it on the first day, he can bring it on the other days. It can be brought during the entire Chag. It has Tashlumim the whole 7 days of the Chag. So therefore, Loidachya Shabbos. So it's not Zman Kavua, it's not Teicha Shabbos. Umid Shabbos Loidachya Tuma. And if it's not Teicha Shabbos, it's not Teicha Tuma. And therefore, the Tana excluded this case.